believing for divine direction for our nation. And it's one thing just to pray for our nation. It's another thing to say, as followers of Jesus, we need Jesus to be directing our steps. If you're here and you've given your life to Christ, you're a follower of Jesus, your citizenship is not only as a Canadian, but your citizenship is also a heavenly thing. And so there are different kingdoms that we live in. There's the work world that we live in, but then there's God. What is your heart for our lives? And so in that vein, we want to continue. As I said a moment ago, Canada isn't perfect. Often there are about 36.5 million different or seemingly million different opinions on how we should fix our problems as a nation. But how many of you know that every single one of us, when we share what we think or how we think it could be fixed, lots of places in the world would love the freedom to share those things. And so we celebrate the heart of freedom that we have as a nation. Again, the freedom that you have as a Canadian is important, but the freedom that you have as a follower of Jesus is essential for our hearts and lives. And freedom for followers of Jesus, or freedom for Christians, is learning how to trust. Everyone say trust. It's learning how to trust God's divine direction for your life. And so last week we kicked off chapter 1 of the book. Some of you have purchased it, Divine Direction. Well, chapter 1 was about start. Chapter 2 is the other end of the spectrum. Today we want to look at stop. Everyone say stop. The word that was on most Canadians' lips yesterday, which is stop raining. Right? June had 30 days, 23 of them we were blessed with rain. God isn't just good, he's amazing. Yesterday we didn't just get a little bit of rain. Yesterday was the most rainy Canada Day since 1959. Congratulations, everyone. We did it. It's amazing. Like, we win something. I don't know if it's a tweet or whatever, but we win it. We get it. It's amazing. But the word is stop. Everyone say stop. Stop. So last week we talked about starting. This week we want to look at stopping. I've yet to meet one person in my life who, in a moment of honesty or vulnerability, there isn't one thing in their life that they wish they could stop today. I wish I could stop thinking this. I wish I could stop saying this. I wish I could stop doing this over and over and over again. I wish I could stop. We all have these places in our lives. Our willpower is strong, but haven't you noticed that sometimes we need something more than willpower to stop things in our lives? We need a divine direction to override our will. And that's what we want to open our hearts to this morning. That sometimes breakthrough isn't made by starting something new. Sometimes breakthrough isn't made by starting something new, but stopping. Everyone say stopping. But stopping something that no longer leads to freedom. 1 Corinthians says, now where the Spirit of the Lord, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Where the Lord is allowed to move, there is freedom. All of our lives have areas where we've said, God, you can move in this area, but sometimes there are locked compartments, locked doors in our lives where we say, God, I don't know about this area. Don't worry, I got it. I can work it out. And what life will show you is that oftentimes we can't work it out. So where the Lord is free to move, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And so this morning, let's believe for God to do impossible things, not only in our nation, but in our hearts. Have you ever had an experience in your life where you see almost about what's going to happen, but you can't stop it before it's going to happen? But you just have this little moment? Well, I had a moment like that a number of years ago. Actually, not that many years ago. We used to have a deck off the back of our home, and it was in disrepair. And on the left side of it was a garden hose holder. I had to slow down and say that because the first service, that was just an adventure. It was a garden hose holder. I mean, when you bought them from a Canadian Tire, they were green. But after that, they changed colors. And truthfully, how do you remember those metal garden hose holders that were on the side of decks? Crazily enough, in my life of 44 years, I never actually saw a hose on them. I always saw the hoses on the ground, but there were the garden hose holders. And so I had one of those things. Now, I am not the most handy individual on the planet. I'm not the worst, but I'm definitely not the best. However, when I looked at this garden hose holder, I figured I could take this off my deck without any issues. There were a few screws, and so I simply take the screws out, and then it would just fall off. So I took the screws out, and it didn't fall off. Well, I'm stumped. Well, I got nothing, right? So my brain said, we'll just hit it really hard. Because that's how a man's brain works. You ever see a man in a vending machine? Next thought, well, it's not. So, here's the garden hose holder, all rusted out. And now a smart man would have hit it from the top down. Not this one. No. This one leaned over it. Put my hand under it. Got back to here. And when I got to about here, everything in me went, no. But how many know at that point? Too late. Every fiber of my being was saying, you moron, stop. If this is successful, so it was successful. I hit the garden hose holder up, and it hit me right in the schnoz, because it's a small nose, so she's barely missed it. Hit me right in the nose, and it split my nose open from here to here. My eyes were you get hit in the nose, right? I had to go to the Mofor hospital, and they had to glue my nose shut. So all I'm saying is, between here, I knew I should stop. But once you start, some of you, I'm going to help you right here. You ready? Some of you do something. I'm going to help me help you. When you're driving your vehicle and you do something dumb, don't stop midway and try to correct it. When you're hitting a garden hose holder and you're doing something dumb, you see it through because you finish what you start. So I have a scar on my nose that reminds me of my stupidity. And if you want to see it after the service, no, stop. That's you can't get that close. You're going to make me incredibly self-conscious. Stop. You ever been in a conversation where everything inside of you is screaming, no, stop. Here it comes. It's your garden hose holder moment. You know. Stop! Paul, Peter say it in different ways. The epistles say it. Why do I do what I don't want to do? And the very things that I want to do, I don't do. So why don't I stop doing the things I don't want to do, the things I want to start, I can't seem to. So it is this wrestle that we have. And in your Bibles, if you turn to Exodus chapter 18, we can see a man by the name of Moses. It's an Old Testament. So here's what you need to know if you're new to church at all, or if you don't know this. The Bible is comprised of an Old Covenant and a New Covenant. One story, it's all about Jesus, all leads to Jesus, but Old Covenant, New Covenant. In the Old Covenant, God would often use an individual. So in this case, his name was Moses. When God would use an individual, it wasn't a blanket endorsement of everything in their lives. It's just under the Old Covenant how God would use an individual. In the New Testament, God uses individuals, but we're a body, so we need one another. That's important for where we're going. So here's Moses in the Old Testament, and God has used his life to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. So they were in slavery. They had been led out of Egypt. How many know that God can set you free from something, but it can take a while from what